Welcome to the Michael Ouzas podcast.
Welcome back to the Michael Ouzas podcast. Today we welcome Joel Broda. Joel and I played together over in Austria. He was drafted by Washington in 2008, played 5 years and over 300 games in the WHL, followed by over 500 professional games and over 11 seasons, 200 in the American League, and over 300 games professionally in Europe, most of that in Austria, where, again, Joel and I played together. Welcome to the show, Joe Broda.
Thank you very much, Mike. Good to be here.
Yeah, pretty pumped. Great seeing you, obviously. Joel just announced his retirement from pro hockey, and now he's doing awesome in real estate out in Saskatchewan. So I want to kind of go back to the beginning. Like, let's go back, like where you're from, how'd you get into hockey, where it all started for you?
Yeah, I'm originally from Kamsack. My dad grew up in Kamsack, Saskatchewan, small little town. So I was born in Yorkton actually, but raised in Kamsack for my first couple years. So um, my dad never really got to play hockey. He had a head injury when he was a kid. But I think around took me to the rink when I was 3 or 4 and found a stick in the garbage is the old story, and decided to sign me up for some hockey. I think my first year when I was 3, I just did some can skate or figure skating, I guess, and kind of got the handle on skating, and then signed me up from 4 years old on, and kind of had the itch for it ever since. So we moved to PA when I think I was in first grade, and yeah, just always loved it. Always had a passion for it, and kind of moved up through the ranks in town, and kind of really had a bit of a growth spurt around 11 or 12, and kind of was a bit of a late bloomer compared to some of my peers in that sense. I was always kind of middle of the road, and that kind of jump kind of helped me, and it kind of elevated myself, and ended up getting drafted in the Bantam draft in the Western League out to Tri-Cities, and left when I was 15, so I was pretty young to leave home, go 3,000 miles away, but that was it.
And Kansack, that's Saskatchewan, of course. And so Tri-Cities, 3,000 kilometers away from, like, where is Tri-Cities compared to, Saskatchewan or Saskatoon?
Tri-Cities is in Washington State, so just a little bit south of like Seattle. It's actually not called Tri-Cities on a map. I think it's Kennewick, Richland, and Pasco are the three towns kind of all bordering each other, so they call it the Tri-City area. But that's in Washington State, over on the west coast there.
How long were the bus trips on on that team? Like, how long were you guys riding the bus to go to different games? Like, I can't imagine it was that close.
Yeah, there's a few teams. There was a team in Portland, which was a few hours. Seattle was about 3.5 hours. We played in a suburb called Everett, that was about 4 hours, a little bit past Seattle. Um, I think that was our four. Oh, and Spokane as well. We played in Spokane. Spokane was our shortest trip, about 2.5. But yeah, then you come all the way out to Brandon, Manitoba, and it's about a 27-hour, 30-hour bus ride. So some long ones for sure. Playing in the Western League compared to some of you guys over in Ontario, there, they're 30-minute bus rides. So that was just my commute to the rink back in the day.
That's crazy. 20 hours on the bus. The longest, I mean, not including Europe there in Hungary, but the longest for us, especially in the OHL, was like Toronto. I was in Toronto to the Sault Ste. Marie was about 7 hours. So that was the longest. Most of the trips, if you're in that, at the time, the Toronto division, everything was like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Barrie was the farthest an hour. So 20 hours, crazy.
Yeah.
You guys won the WHL. You played in the Mem Cup. What was that like? What was junior hockey like altogether? Like from when you entered junior to, before you moved out.
Yeah, it was good. It was still kind of pretty old school when I first got to. I feel like just my whole career, I was kind of in that transition group, I guess, from kind of old school to new school. But when I got to the Western League at 15, 16. It was still a pretty rough and tough league. Kind of a man's game, really physical, really structured. So it was a big adjustment for me my first year. I struggled a little bit. I had a few injuries. I got a puck in the mouth. My third preseason game when I was 15 years old, got my whole four front teeth knocked out. Came all the way out. I skated off. They found him on the ice, shoved him back in my mouth. Went to the kind of slept all night with a mouth guard in to keep him in, and then went to the dentist the next day and root canaled them all, braced them all up. So it's kind of a rough way to start your junior career, and just kind of had an off year. Yeah, just dealing with that and being away from home. I was a pretty young kid. Just lots of things. So I kind of didn't have a great year there, and then I had a much better year. My second year I was more prepared. And my third year, going into my draft year, I was really focused on that. I trained really, really hard for that, and ended up getting traded, I think, 2 or 3 games into the season, going to Moose Jaw, which ended up being the best thing for me. For whatever reason, noticed it throughout your career, but some coaches just like certain players and certain types of players and stuff, which it was turning out in Tri-Cities with Don Knockbar. I wasn't one of his guys, or he wasn't a big fan, and I think the general manager knew that I had really put in a lot of effort to try to get myself ready and wanted to give me an opportunity. At the same time, he found a good trade for another player. So I went to Moose Jaw. It ended up being great. Had a kind of fresh start there and had a really, really good season. Ended up getting drafted by the Capitals in the 5th round there. So that was good. Pretty exciting to be able to go to camp with Ovechkin and stuff. And I went to my first camp, trained really hard that summer. Went to my first camp and was really motivated and had a good camp and did well and came back kind of on fire and ended up leading the Western League in goals that year with 53. I think I was the first guy in a couple of years to have a 53 goal season. And then our team ended up getting traded again at the deadline that year. Got traded from Moose Jaw, I was doing well there personally, but our team was pretty weak. We had a slow start. But then I got traded to kind of a record-setting team at the time in the Calgary Hitmen, and we're kind of rated the best team in the country, actually. So I went there and we swept the first 3 rounds, going to the finals, and then we got upset by the Kelowna Rockets. They beat us the first 3 games, and then we took it to 6 and lost. When I look back now, it's not really as much of an upset. They had guys like Jamie Benn on their team, Michael Backlund, Tyson Berry, Tyler Myers. So compared to some of the guys we had guys like Brandon Cozen, myself was a pretty good player at the time. Brett Sonny won Player of the Year that year. Paul Postma. Who else? We had Stoner. We had Alex Plant, who was a first rounder. We had Keith Seabrook, who was I think a second or third rounder. Yeah, we had a good team too, but looking back, they had some pretty serious star power, and they had one of those goalies. I don't got to tell you about when a goalie gets hot. Their goalie was just on fire the first 3 games. I think we had like 50 shots every game on him, and he was just stood on his head, and we ended up losing there. And then went to camp, kind of thought I was kind of done with junior, had a pretty successful season, and that was right at the time when the Caps were winning President's trophies, and Hershey Bears, their affiliate, were winning back-to-back Calder Cup, so they were pretty stacked, and they didn't end up signing me and let me turn pro that year, which was a little bit deflating for me at first. Kind of came back to junior and kind of had a slow start, but kind of really flipped my mindset and kind of just moved on from that and ended up still having a good year. I think I'd coming back a little late. I think I still had a 40 goal season, but we figured it out as a team and a group, the guys that came back, and we put it together. And I think we're an even better team from having that experience of losing in the playoffs last year, and took it all the way to the finals and won. So went to the Mem Cup. It was good. We had beat Brandon out in the third round, and they were hosting that year in the Mem Cup, so they were practicing for a few weeks. We kind of had their number all year, and we beat them earlier in the tournament, and then come the semifinals, we played them, and they ended up having a comeback. I think they came back from 3-1 in the third period and beat us in overtime, and then they went to the finals and lost to Windsor. I think it was like 9 or 10-1. So that one sucked. I think we could have maybe had a bit more success against Windsor than that. But at the end of the day, Windsor had kind of won it the year before, so they were a pretty talented team with Ryan Ellis and Adam Henrique and all those type of guys. Philip Grubauer was on their team. So, but yeah, that was kind of, I guess, my junior career in a nutshell. And yeah, I have a lot of good memories looking back at the Western League.
Yeah, it's really cool. A lot to unpack there too. I think it's so interesting when you get into junior, and I felt the same way. Like, it's really hard to adapt that first year. Just how it's so different, right? You're going from AAA hockey or whatever to playing against literally like 20-year-old men at that point, right? Like,
Yeah.
is there a reason you went junior versus NCAA? Did you even consider going to school at all, or just straight to junior? That's kind of what you wanted to do.
Yeah, there was a few guys that went college, but I think mostly in my age group, everybody wanted to go to the Western League. I was kind of I guess, an earlier developer in the grand scheme of things in terms of hockey. I'd grown. I was a big kid for being 14, 15 years old. I'd gotten drafted pretty high. I got drafted in the first round in the Bantam draft. So grew up watching the Prince Albert Raiders in town. So honestly, never probably even considered the college route. Being a young Saskatchewan kid. But having said that, having gone through the process of going pro and stuff, you definitely get your eyes opened. When you turn pro, you're, 20, 21 years old. And then there's these guys that come in from college and they're 24 or 25 years old, and you guys are judged on the same level. They have those extra 3-4 years of development, which for a lot of guys can be a pretty big advantage, I think. And on one hand, you would think when you get to pro that they would say, oh well, this guy has played 3 years pro, but he's only 24 years old. This guy's out of college, he's 24 years old. You'd think that would be the comparison, but it's not. It's how many years have you played professionally? And so having gone through the process, that's something that I have a couple boys now, and if my boys ever got to that point where they had some of those opportunities, it's something I'd definitely probably take a bit more of a look at. And I think you just got to base it on everybody's own personal situation.
Yeah, and at that time too, like going NCAA wasn't like what it is today. Like it wasn't like going to the OHL or WHL at the time was like the thing to do, right? Like that was just how it felt.
Yeah.
Now it's a lot more, it's a lot more common that players are going to NCAA and going pro after, or they're leaving school early and still going pro. But yeah, like you said, that they might get a little bit of maybe a longer maybe not so much a longer leash, but their leash starts later. So those extra couple years of development, if you sign and then you have 2 years in your contract, you're starting at 22 or 23 with 2 years versus starting at 20 with 2 or 3 years. And I think that makes a huge difference at the pro game, just from a maturity standpoint too, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and then so what was that jump like to pro? Like what was, you played your 5 years in junior. So did you end up signing with Washington and get traded? Because I know you were affiliated with Minnesota, right? So what was that like? And you went to Houston. So what was that like?
Yeah, no, I'd ended up ended up not signing with Washington. It kind of seemed like at that point I'd had another good season, but the writing was kind of on the wall with them. I guess they just kind of decided that they wanted to go a different route, and they still wanted to sign me, I think, to an American League deal. But at that point, I said no. I think I'd like to re-enter the draft, so I ended up going back through the draft and had a lot of actually had a crazy Austria story. So I was 20 years old, had gone back through the draft, had two pretty good years, and kind of was looking at some different camp offers and stuff, and my agent at the time, Jerry Johansson, he goes, "Oh, I got this crazy opportunity in Europe. You know, you could go there, work on your skating a little bit, go to Red Bull. They train a lot." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "And then maybe, maybe if you go play there for a year, then maybe somebody will end up offering you something a bit more secure." And I'm like, "Okay." So I end up packing up in the middle of July, go to Salzburg, Austria, uh, and I go there for about 2, 3 weeks. I'm this 20-year-old kid. I've never lived on my own, and that was back before the age of that was in 2010, I think. So that was back before the age of iPhones and Google Translate and whatever. So um, barely knew how to use Skype that well at the time. I was still running my BlackBerry, so go to Austria, and I'm there for 2 weeks trying to figure it out on my own. I'm calling my parents with like a 20-digit number from a call collect payphone down the street. It was pretty wild, but ended up getting an offer from Minnesota for a 3-year entry level deal. Negotiated all the terms through that payphone at the end of the street there, and ended up packing up and coming home. I ended up having a clause in my contract with Red Bull that if I signed a deal with an NHL team, I'd be able to come back. So I was there for 2 weeks, and then jumped on a plane and went straight to the Wild's summer camp, and then started my 3-year entry level deal with them in the fall. So
That's crazy. Funny how it like kind of
yeah.
came full circle, eh? Like, um, that's unreal. And then, so you went to camp with the Wild, and then ended up in Houston. What was camp like? What was that process like? And what's the difference? Like, for those that don't know, what's the difference like when you go from junior to pro level camp in that level? And what are some of the differences there?
Oh, just a huge jump. I mean, you're dealing with the best of the best, and it's these 30-year-old professional men that have been training their whole lives, and just really opens your eyes to the amount of professionalism and just the high level of skill and compete level that it takes to play the game every day for a living. And definitely a really big jump, big eye opener, lots of growing up to do really, really quick. You're just kind of like a sponge trying to take it all in. The Yeah, the expectations are much, much higher than junior. I mean, you still we're working hard and stuff in junior, but those coaches at pro, they demand the best all the time. So definitely a big jump there to go to camp, and then same thing when you get to the American League. You're playing against guys that are there to make a living. They have kids, they have families, they have wives, they have mortgages. So you're this young 20-year-old kid fresh out of junior that ultimately could be competing and taking some of their ice time away, their opportunities away to have a season to sign for more money for. So very, very competitive and very very different environment than just hanging out with the guys in junior, riding the bus, getting your billets to cook all your meals. Much, much different, and definitely a big jump, and just the level of play also. Everybody's so much better. The margin for error is so small, and everybody at that level is a really good player. So big jump.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing as well. Is everyone's good. Everyone can play.
Yeah.
There's a reason they're sticking around that level, and then finding ways, like coaches demand excellence every single day. It's such a huge, not that they don't in junior, but it just I mean, pro is just a different beast, right? It's just because everybody's
Yeah.
so good, so it's like everyone's best is very good. And
Yeah.
then, so you played 5 years in the American League, a couple hundred games, few hundred games. Did you like as what was your growth like as a player, as a person in those 5 years? Like you went from junior to pro, and you develop a lot too as a human. What was that like on your end?
Yeah, it was first year was a lot. I ended up I had a good start to the season. I was playing well. I ended up getting an injury. I'd never really dealt with any injuries, luckily, before in my career, so I ended up getting a sports hernia. Um, Probably in November, December. I was kind of working my way up the lineup, getting more and more ice time, having some success. And then I kind of was starting to get ailed by this. Unfortunately, it was kind of misdiagnosed by some of the staff and stuff. So I kept playing, and when got it checked out. If I would have got it dealt with sooner, it might have been different. But my play started dropping off. I'd sit out, and we couldn't figure out why this thing wasn't getting better. They kind of thought it was an abdominal strain. And then I ended up going down for a few games to get my feet back under me on the coast, actually to Bakersfield, where I ended up returning later on. And then I came back up, and by that point, I'd kind of missed enough time that they had brought someone else in, a veteran, and I got re-injured, I think, and then I kind of just limped through the rest of that year. I played in the coast. I still did pretty well down there, but kind of limped through the rest of that year and ended up getting my hernia sorted out. I think when I went to Minnesota in the summer, we ended up finding out that's what it was. So um, got that taken care of shortly after that, and kind of went into the second season injured. But that was a tough year for me because I'd never really had to deal with that before. And I guess you don't really realize that even when you're injured, that was a hard lesson for me to learn. That even when you're injured, you don't get any credit for that. You don't get credit for playing injured. If you're playing, um, you know, the expectation is you're 100% and you're expected to play to 100%. You're not going to get any bonus points or any brownie points for playing through stuff. Um, when you're kind of a middle of the road guy. Maybe if you're Patrice Bergeron and you're playing through a punctured lung like he did in the playoffs or something, and it hits the press. There's those stories too. But then there's a lot of guys that play with a lot of stuff uh, that doesn't make the papers and stuff, and that's just part of the game that you learn, that you kind of gotta be smart about it, and kind of put yourself in a position to have success, and know when you're not helping yourself to kind of push through stuff. So
Yeah, it's not easy to make that decision, right? Because you always want to be in the
yeah,
lineup, but it's like if you're in the lineup at 80% or 70%, are you like, I mean, and at the time, like I know it's easy to look back now and be like, oh yeah, maybe it's easy to just take the game off, and but like it's not really like that when you're in it. That's for sure. So let's talk the jump to Europe, and you said you'd already been to Austria. You went back to Austria and spent a lot of time there. Obviously, we played together in Linz, and you spent the other half of your career in Austria, which you spent on a couple different teams. What was the jump like from the American League to Bolzano to start, and going from there to over to Europe at that time with an iPhone?
yeah, it was. Bolzano was crazy. I ended up finishing up with the Wild there. Um, Kind of had a concussion. My third year is a lockout year, so kind of was a disappointing year. Had a better second year, but then my third year was that lockout. They had a bunch of studs there, so didn't end up getting qualified with them. Was kind of a tough pill to swallow. And I think looking back, you don't realize how short your window is. You think there's going to be more opportunities that come down the pipe for you, but looking back, it's like, yeah, I had 3 years, and once those 3 years are over, you're kind of on the outside looking in. So played it in the coast in Bakersfield, which was a really good year for me. Um, Developed a lot, played a lot, played, and then went to Hershey, had a so-so year, and then kind of was on the fringe whether I wanted to go back there or not. I probably could have gone back, but I was kind of getting worn out by the process of the North American game and all the politics and how hard you gotta fight just to get a shot a little bit. So decided to kind of late in the summer decided to make this jump over to Europe. Went to Bolzano, Italy, which was that was a crazy place to go for my first year. I'd heard a lot of stories about it. They had this kind of crazy old owner, and went there, had a lot of stories from that year. Just went over there with a few other good guys, Taylor Voss and Jerry Polistroni and Brett Fleming. A couple good guys that I ended up kind of staying in touch with the whole time I was over in Europe, and yeah, had a lot of funny stories. Had a pretty crazy coach that was a big change in just the way they conducted themselves versus previous North American coaches, to say the least. So it was a big eye opener to what the game was like over there. But at the same time, it was tons of fun. It was nice to just go and play, and if you played well, you'd play more. There was no behind the scenes or other motives than just team success, which was great. It was kind of refreshing for me in that sense. And yeah, that first year in Bolzano was a blast. Me and my wife we had just gotten married that previous summer, so yeah, it was. We look back at that as one of our funnest years, just traveling all over Italy and taking advantage of those national team breaks. We went to Rome, went to Venice, went to Florence, went to Milan. So yeah, that was a very fun time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's one thing that kind of flies out of the well, I wouldn't say it flies on the radar, but the lifestyle over there is also a big thing. Like it's less games, you practice more. Obviously, the stakes are still high. You still have to perform to keep getting more jobs and to add to the longevity over there. But having the breaks to travel a little bit, like it's a pretty solid life over there. What did you feel like? So when you made that jump over there, what was the driving force on keep getting better and to like keep playing pro and keep going? Because I find that that's tough sometimes for guys when they make the jump to Europe. Coming back to the NHL is not always in the cards, especially if you're going to a league like Austria versus going to like Russia or something. What was that like for you?
Yeah, there's kind of a mindset shift for sure. You know, since I was 10 or 12 years old, the whole goal up until that point was to make the NHL. And you're playing and you're working. There's always that light at the end of the tunnel. That's the thing. And kind of, it was a little bit of an adjustment for me to go there because it's not really, like you said, going to Austria, it's a great league, great place to live. But as far as NHL scouts looking for you, that's not really a league that they're going to watch as closely. They're going to be looking more in Sweden or Finland or Russia, like you said, Switzerland. So um, it was a bit of an adjustment there for me. And then once you get over there, I think you kind of just start seeing where you want to go, and the mindset kind of shifted from making the NHL to, hey, I want to have you can make a little more money than I could maybe in North America, and I can have a good life here with my family and have some good experiences and enjoy playing. And obviously you're still competitive, so you want to kind of keep moving up to bigger and better places, whether that's within the league or a different league. And the mindset kind of shifted to more of a mindset of, money motivator, that you want to make a little more money, be on a better team, have a better year, have more success, have more team success, all that kind of thing. So it was a bit of a transition there in thought process and stuff. And but yeah, it was looking back on my European years, there's some of my highlights and some of my funnest years of my career. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you summed it up perfectly. Like when you're going over there, obviously there is a motivator to make more money, play on better teams, have a little bit more of a team first mentality versus everyone's trying to really make the NHL, of course. Like, and even though that's the goal, it's just part of the journey of being a pro hockey player. And ultimately, you are trying to make a living. Like, I think that kind of goes under the
Yeah.
radar sometimes. Like, you're trying to make a living and support your family. Like you mentioned back, when you first got to the American League, and you're fighting 30-year-olds for their job, and they're trying to support their family too. So totally different
Yeah.
mindset. I want to make the switch over to real estate, and a lot of this podcast is talking to I want to talk to anybody who was in the game, has transitioned into different jobs, but I do have a little bit of a like soft spot for people who are now in real estate. Obviously, I'm doing the same
Yeah.
thing, and so you got the sign behind you, Joel Broda Real Estate. You're out of Saskatchewan, downtown.
Yeah. I'm out
is
of
that real?
yeah. I'm out of Prince Albert. Yeah, in my
Prince
hometown.
Albert.
I came home and yeah, I've been doing the real estate thing here in town and in my hometown. So
So what's that been like so far? Like, let's talk transitioning from the game. Why real estate? How did you make the decision to get into real estate, and where you're at now?
yeah, yeah. Well, I played with you, Mike, and it kind of changed my whole perspective there. So no, I'm just kidding.
Good one.
Yeah, no, Mike. Yeah, I kind of always had an interest in it, I guess. We would talk a little bit and kind of maybe you rubbed off on me a little bit, but always had a bit of an interest in it. And coming back, I think originally I was taking some schooling. I've been taking some schooling, which I'll be hopefully finishing up here in a couple months, and then I'll be done with it. But ended up, obviously once you make that transition to Europe, you kind of realize that life after hockey isn't going to be just golfing and hanging out. You realize you're going to have a second career and a second job, and you're going to have to work for a living as well when you're done playing because you're not retiring with millions of dollars. So once I got to Europe, I started some schooling and kind of started thinking ahead to, how long am I going to do this for? And then a couple of years in, I decided to take some real estate course. My family was getting into some real estate development in our town here. They had a few projects going on, and originally that was something that just said, "Hey, maybe I could get my license and I could kind of do that." And never really thought I was going to have a career in it. Just something I could have that would kind of add in, and I thought I'd just get mixed in more on the development side and took the course. And I finished it a couple years ago, and then I think I had a 2 year window after I just chipped away. I did two courses one summer, two courses the next summer, and then I think I had 2 years to get registered before I would have to retake the test. So actually last summer, or I guess now I've been out of the game for a whole year, so I don't even realize that. But not last summer because I the summer before that, I ended up just getting registered and coming in the office a couple days a week and kind of getting going that way. And it kind of turned into I'd kind of gotten into it just as something to have to, then you start learning a little bit more about it, meeting some people, and kind of started realizing all the carryovers from playing pro hockey, playing on a bunch of different teams. I get to meet people. Really enjoyed the social aspect and became a pretty social person from meeting all these different teammates and coaches and families and people. So I really enjoyed that, and then I started noticing. The competitive side of it, being a hockey player, there is some competitiveness in this industry, obviously, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to know how to handle that. And, I kind of say it to everybody, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's so competitive." And I'm like, "Well, try playing 12 years in minor pro where you're fighting for your job every day. So it's not really too different. You gotta pass the puck to someone else in the American League, and he scores. You're both trying to get called up to the same team, but at the end of the day, if you don't make the play, if you don't work together, neither of you are going to have success, and neither of you are going to benefit from that. So it's no different. in real estate, someone's got a listing. I got someone who's interested in the property. We got to work together and to get this thing done, and then everybody benefits. The client benefits, you benefit, and you got to know how to work with people. You got to know how to read people. You got to know how to talk to people. You got to know how to work through problems professionally. All those kind of things, all those subliminal skills that you don't even realize you're learning and perfecting, playing hockey, being in different situations, being in hard situations. Those are the kind of things that I think once I got going in this business, I really realized I had gotten a lot of experience and work experience playing hockey, even though you think you're not. There's a lot of real world skills that you're learning through that whole process. So, obviously, just like we talked about money being a motivator, another thing that I slowly started realizing as I started working more and getting more into it was, the earning potential you have. There is no earning cap with this business. You can, if you want to work 7 hours a week or 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you can do it. There's no one saying you can't. So kind of the mentality of you can get as much out of it as you want to put into it was also a really motivating thing for me. And just kind of those kind of things that, I started finding more and more correlations from, playing hockey to this industry, and the fact that I could, be flexible with my schedule, with my family. I got 3 kids now, so the fact that I could take an afternoon off here, go there, still be productive, but I could kind of, tweak my schedule a little bit and kind of be in my own bed every night, but at the same time, do what I need to get done around and kind of make sure I'm around for my kids' activities and take a day off here or there if you need to, because you can make it up on the back end. All those kind of things are something that it started out as something that I didn't really think was going to be a career, and then the more I kind of got going, it's kind of like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's amazing. Like, what a summary. And you nailed it. I often say, like, it's the same business, just a different game. It's literally a lot of the same lessons from the work ethic and the behind the scenes, and you definitely get what you put into it. And like you said, there's no ceiling, there's no floor, but there's also no ceiling. And it's just like, it's a good motivator, and you're doing an awesome job. You've been crushing it for your short time, and I mean, I'm not in it that long either, but you're doing a great job. And Joel Broda Real Estate, how can people get a hold of you if they want to connect, talk about real estate out in Prince Albert? What's your handles? If you're welcome to that, how can people get a hold of you?
Handles are right there. Just Joel Broda Real Estate.
I love
You can
that.
look me up on Facebook or Instagram. Yeah, no, try to be pretty active on there, and yeah, all my info's in there. So anybody's in the area or anybody looking coming out from Ontario, I've helped a few people migrate into our beautiful province here. There's lots of opportunity out here, and you'll get pretty good bang for your buck out here compared to over in Ontario there. So yeah, give me a call.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, if anyone is listening and looking to go out west, definitely let either of us know. Happy to connect you with Joel. And yeah, everybody, thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, throw a like and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, if you can leave a review, that's greatly appreciated. Joel, thank you so much for joining me today. This was awesome. Great chat. I think there's a ton of value in there, especially for any players too that are looking to make the jump from hockey to any business really, but real estate specifically. I'm sure you can reach out to either of us, and we're both happy to help you get started. So Joel, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks Mike, thanks for having me.